Welcome, friends. I'm Eddie Harold, your host. This is a Breath as Medicine, Life with Breath expert series with the amazing Dawn Westrum. I became aware of Dawn's work about 8 weeks ago, and I was just totally floored. And we needed to go off the reservation a little bit today. And I really think that what Dawn is cooking is something that we all need to eat these days. Dawn has a rich background in athletics, endurance athletics. She's a master of nutrition. She has a huge background in peptides and what they can bring to our health in 2024. So let's just dive right into this, ladies and gentlemen. Dawn, it's great to be with you.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
So, you meet people all the time in your life. And gosh, when I met you, I was just totally floored by your presence, your background, how you communicate. Has it always been like that, or is it just something you've cultivated over the years?
I think I remember in the Army, I suddenly thought people actually take my advice and do things. So I better be careful about what I say. It was such a light bulb moment for me. Like, whoa, okay, I better pay attention. This is important.
What was your experience like in the Army?
I had a great time, actually. I got stationed in Germany and England. I was also in Washington, D.C. for a while. I picked the longest job when they offered me a range of jobs based on my test scores or whatever. I said, well, more schooling is better than less, right?
Right.
I kind of regretted that because Army schooling is like being in jail. But
Right.
I did learn a lot. I was a satellite technician, and it was a great experience. And I got to travel to a lot of countries and meet new cultures, and I love it. And it helped me find direction in my life. And I would say, yeah, if you're thinking of joining the Army or the military, do it. It gives you a different perspective, gets you out of your town, gets you out of the same people you've known your entire life. I had a great time.
Thanks for sharing that with us. That's beautiful. So, I thought I was an endurance athlete. I guess my longest swim was 23 miles, 11 hours, 5 minutes. And, I was holding that up, in my memory banks. And then I took a look at your resume and I realized that was just the warm up for you. Your endurance career is breathtaking. It's remarkable. Your resiliency, the dedication to the sport, your dedication to getting to know yourself better in endurance events and extreme sports. Has that been something that was always, on your plate, or it just kind of, you took baby steps and all of a sudden began to realize, hey, I love being with myself. I love being in my body, and I love endurance sports?
I never did much of it. I didn't play much sports in high school. I had a horse for a while, but
Right.
My second duty station, I was in Germany, and my first sergeant there, he was there. There was in Germany, there's something called Volksmarching, and it's the people's walk, right? So all over Germany, every weekend, there's all these Volksmarches, and they're all different lengths. 5K, 10K, marathon. Sometimes you do swims, but mostly it's just walking. And so you just go walk through the German forest and eat cake at the end. All the women of the town make these amazing pies and cakes, and they have bratwurst. And it was a great experience. And I started doing them as part of our company. Our first sergeant sort of organized trips on the weekends. And I wasn't really a runner. I ran because maybe 6 miles was the furthest I'd ever gone. But one day at work, my first sergeant just said, do you want to do a marathon this weekend as a Volksmarch? And I said, okay. So 3 days later, we went and ran 42 kilometers. And, we walked the uphills and ran the downhills. And I think it took 7 hours or something. But I was hooked. And I think I did 12 marathons a year the next couple of years, along with a whole lot of other walks and hikes and everything else.
Yeah. So you're the president of Vigeo.
Vigeo, yes.
Vigeo.
Yeah.
And can you just give us a little bit about what you're doing professionally to help folks remain healthy and vibrant during these challenging times?
Yeah, so I started a couple years ago with a friend. After COVID, we kind of just said, there's got to be something better out here, because all these people were looking for answers. And we just said, okay, the answers are back to the basics. Let's
Yes.
look at elements on the periodic table. Let's see what people are short on. And I took my first client and said, all right, let's make some great guesses. And then every client after that, it's, revise what I recommend, get the next person, revise what I recommend. And, I've hundreds of recommendations and hundreds of revisions later. It's just back to the basics. Look at micronutrients. What are you short on? What are you suffering from? What's the root cause of it? And sometimes everything has to do with just one thing. And I can say, look, you're on 7 different medications and they all have the same root cause. Let's fix that root cause and, go back to your doctor and say, hey, I don't need any of these medications now. Can you please take me off?
It seems like the Western corporate model has turned into, rather than a patient-driven business that it was like when I was a child, but it's now turned into a customer base where you're almost like going out to buy a car. And it's really, really strange. One thing I've noticed is that folks aren't getting any better in the traditional system. What are some strategies you can give folks to maybe pause for a moment and think about their health and the next steps to getting healthier?
Sometimes it's just putting pieces together, and not all of them are complicated. Not the most recent thing I've put together, but Gary Brecka, if you've never listened to his podcast, he talks about methylation and excess folic acid. And that was, I look at chunks of what I can fix and what I can help people with. And that was a big component of like finding root causes. And, the folic acid component has sleep and high blood pressure and high cholesterol and anxiety and depression and gut issues. Like it relates back to so many things. So for a lot of people, I just say, let's look at folic acid. Let's get that out of your diet. And that could be a huge piece of a lot of the problems that you're experiencing.
So well said. A lot of what I do is around nasal breathing, opening the airway, strengthening the thoracic diaphragm. And as this diaphragm becomes more dynamic, it gives us a healthier microbiome. It gives us a healthier experience in the gut and, gut inflammation. Does all health really begin and end in our gut?
I think it does. Yeah. When I have a client, I kind of walk them through the digestive cycle. Like, okay, let's look at your stomach. Do you have heartburn? Do you have, and that relates back to folic acid and methylation. If you don't have enough of the good kind of B vitamins, then you're not going to make enough stomach acid. Do you need an antacid? No, you need more stomach acid. You need to be able to digest your food. And then you go further down and you look at liver and gallbladder function, because they produce bile, and you need bile to digest fats. And, our livers are overworked because we're taking in a lot of toxins, and our livers actually expand to be able to deal with those toxins. So sometimes if we have excess abdominal weight, it's just because our liver is really huge. They've actually done autopsies of people's livers, and they've found 70,000 stones inside of the liver, more inside of the gallbladder. So you're interfering with bile production. You should be able to produce about 1.5 quarts of bile every day. But we're down to about a cup of bile because we have so many stones, so much congestion. The liver's working so hard. So we're just not able to. We can't produce bile, and that relates back to high cholesterol and even high blood pressure. And of course, digestion. So then, you get constipated because your intestines aren't working as well as they should be. And it's a whole cascade. So if you can fix like each part of that process, then you start digesting better, you start pooping better. Like
Mhm.
I talk to people about poop. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's very important.
Yeah.
The digestion, elimination, assimilation cycle is something that I think is very valuable to staying in rhythm, psychological rhythm, being at peak mental levels during the day. As you look deeper into the gut, is there a certain trend that you see with the standard American diet today?
I get a lot of clients with constipation, and that
Mhm.
takes management. And because if you eat one diet one day and a different diet the next day, you can really you can get constipation or diarrhea, but it's something you need to pay attention to. Like, oh, I ate a bunch of pasta today. I might actually need a little extra digestive help because that really slows your digestion down. So it's looking inside of yourself and paying attention. And I
Right.
try to draw people back to that. Like, you know yourself best. No one else knows you as well as you do. So
Right.
pay attention, write things down, keep track. And then you'll start to see trends and you'll go, oh, I ate pasta, I need to do something about this. Because if you don't poop for 4 days,
Mhm.
all those toxins get reabsorbed into your body. You're making your body work harder than it really should, which doesn't help any of the health process.
So, at the most simplistic level, does constipation mean that the body's actually rejecting and not allowing food to be processed?
It's processed, but everything in your small intestine is ready to be excreted. But
Hmm.
you can only fit so much in there. I mean, I have people ask me, like, hey, I've been constipated for 5 days. Like, where did it all go? I mean, uh, the bulk of it. And well, you're reabsorbing water to make it smaller. You're reabsorbing like anything it can get back out of that system. But that's not what we want. We just want it to like get eat food, drink water, take what you need from it, and then excrete the rest.
That's great. Can you speak a little bit about the amazing connection between our digestive system, our lymphatic system, which is a branch of the digestive system, and exercise?
Yeah, so I actually give all my clients a dry skin brush. And
Hmm.
so the lymphatic system, obviously, we have lymph nodes, but the lymphatic system's mostly just on the surface of the skin. So a dry skin brush, like long strokes towards the core,
Hmm.
all over. I mean, it circles on your stomach, whatever feels good. That can really help cleanse because the lymphatic system is our drainage. It's taking materials in our body that need to be recycled back to the core, so it either breaks them down into what it needs, builds them back up, or if it's toxins that are coming from wherever, then it brings it to the excretion system and we get rid of it. But exercise is movement is the lymphatic system. That's what it needs to actually do its job. So the dry skin brush helps people that don't have the ability to exercise and sweat as much as they should. But
Hmm.
either way, it still feels amazing. So it's worth doing. But, obviously, the lymphatic system doesn't have a circulation system. Like our heart pumps blood, but nothing can help the lymphatic system except our own movement. So, you know, this. And this is the reason why I have, well, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I have an oligoscan and
Yes.
I
Go ahead.
test, yeah, I test your non-dominant hand because there's actually 8% more toxins found in your non-dominant hand. And why is that? Because we move it less.
Hmm.
We're not writing and talking and using our mouse and anything else. Like, so it's a consistency because we find more toxins because we're not moving that non-dominant hand.
So let's just hit the brakes here for a second. This scan has kind of a weird name, but I went through the scan the other day and I appear to be reasonably healthy on the outside, but internally there was many blockages and high levels of toxins and issues that I need to address like right now. And can you explain a little bit about how you got involved with this cutting edge device, which is so powerful to get folks on the right healthy direction immediately?
Yeah, I heard about it and I said, "Oh, I need to pursue this." And then I happened to be at a conference where someone had one and I did it. And I immediately just said, "I need one of these. This is going to be amazing for what I do." So it's called the Oligoscan, and
Legacy.
it's photospectrometry. So every element on the periodic table has a frequency and a light. And
Mhm.
so this oligoscan just shines frequencies of light at the right hertz, obviously,
Mhm.
into your palm. It reaches deep into your cells and measures your cellular level of 41 different minerals, vitamins, and heavy metals. So it tells me not just, hey, there's something going on, but specifically, oh, you can't lose weight, you're low on iodine. Oh, you're really toxic. Your cells are holding on to heavy metals. And so it really helps me target the nutrients that I recommend to my clients, because before I had the Oligoscan, I just had to splatter like, okay, your thyroid's not working well. You need iodine and selenium, but maybe it's just iodine, maybe it's just selenium. And now I can say, oh, yeah, it's one or the other or both. And it really helps me focus what people need. It's been amazing.
It seems like it's much more efficient than a blood draw.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can test your body several ways. One of them's blood, one of them's hair, one of them's urine. But this one is just what you have right now in your cells, what's getting there. So you can test your blood for vitamin D, but that doesn't mean the vitamin D in your blood is getting into your cells. So
Mhm.
that that help. And then blood tests just don't have the accuracy that we want for things like copper, for things like magnesium. Like you just can't test blood for those things. And you can test your hair, but that's really what happened to you in the last 3 months. That's not what's going on today. And you can test your urine,
Mhm.
but you have to do a challenge test for that. So, I've tested myself for iodine through the urine. You collect your urine for 24 hours after you take a large amount of iodine and then send in a sample and they tell you, okay, you've used, 37% of the iodine you took. And that tells you if you need it, but it's also cumbersome, expensive, it's annoying to try to remember to collect your urine. And
Mhm.
if you forget, you negate the test and you have to start over. So the Oligoscan is instant and it gives me results right away. It's non-invasive, takes 30 seconds and I have everything done.
Yes, one thing I noticed from you is you're extremely efficient and you get right to the root and it's time to grow. And I so appreciate that there isn't any time wasted when folks work with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't try to make it a revolving door of you have to come back and see me every week and I'll give you one piece every week or something. I just want to give a client everything they can need to go be successful. And sure, maybe they come back and see me, maybe they have further questions, but for the inquiring mind who is willing to do some research on their own, they can take what I send them and go be amazing and go feel good. And definitely, you know, my clients come back and say, I feel better, I'm sleeping better, I lost weight, my mind is clearer. And that's my goal. I just want them to go be amazing.
Negative stress has reached an all-time high. Uh, I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. Just, go for a drive on I-15. Uh, what does stress do to our deeper systems, our deeper minerals, our deeper elements? And what are some tools that folks can start to think about today in regard to managing their stress so their stress doesn't manage them?
Yeah, we'll come back to peptides again, but there is a podcast about they were researching peptides for longevity, and it
Yes.
was a long running study, and they did a lot of different bioregulator peptides, And they came back and they said the one factor that made these peptides not function the way they should in the body was stress. So their study that had the most stressed people had the least effect from the longevity peptides. And that says a lot. And stress is depleting nutrients too. So, you can see that on the oligoscan. You can see it in their lives, in their sleep. And oh man, and we should probably talk about EMFs as well.
Let's go.
Yeah. So I've been researching EMFs, and I probably on my newsletter I'll have a picture of an ostrich sticking its head in the sand, because that's what we all want to do. We all want to say, oh, this phone that I want to play with, this phone that helps me do my job, this computer that helps make life so convenient, isn't necessarily good for me. So, part of it is saying, let me control what I have control over. I can't fix the high tension power lines down the street. I can't fix the cell tower on the hill behind my house. But can I make changes? Can I put my phone in airplane mode at night or keep it in the other room? Can I shut my Wi-Fi router off at night with a timer? Like things like that, you have control over, and your sleep is the most important 8 hours of your day. And so for people that are experiencing chronic stress, it could just be that the electrical component, the EMF problem is like the straw that broke the camel's back. So like that's going to be a piece of the puzzle for my clients going forward, is to address that to the extent that they're capable of, and hope that it helps as well.
Yes. I think we have to create some boundaries around the phone. And, I think boundaries create lanes, and it creates discipline. And it's just a simple thing of, maybe I don't pick my phone up to 8 o'clock in the morning, and I don't look at it after 8 o'clock at night. I mean, something as simple as that. It's not brain surgery. It's just discipline. You're someone who's extremely disciplined. How can you help folks cultivate maybe the early steps of level 1 discipline?
Oof. I think I was born disciplined, and it's hard for me to understand someone
Did you
who
get that
isn't.
from your mom or your dad?
I don't, they're both pretty much workaholics. Yeah, I
Oh,
grew up on a farm,
oh,
and
did you? Where
I
was
did,
that?
in Iowa.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. Right now, when everything's green and amazing. Yeah. So I actually go back for harvest every year to Iowa. Yeah. They just need a little bit of extra
Gosh.
help. Yeah. It's hard to find someone who's willing to work 12-hour days for a month straight, once for 1 month a year. So I go back for a few weeks every year, and I get to drive the combines and the big tractors, and it's a different life. It's fun for a few weeks. So
So
yeah,
discipline.
yeah.
Discipline.
So
Let's first
if
talk about when we notice, without judgment, that we've been absent of discipline. There's a moment there of self-correction that's available. And do we choose to self-correct on the fly? Because life's not going to wait for us to put the phone down to create discipline. All of this needs to happen on the fly. So noticing, which we all do, I picked up my phone mindlessly. What are some tips that you might be able to share with folks around creating healthy boundaries, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, around the great communication device called the phone?
oh, it's so hard. Uh, it gives us, every time we pick up our phone, it gives us a dopamine hit. It's like it's like nothing. It's worse than sugar. It's worse than
So
cocaine.
dopamine means that you're going to become a dope for a second,
Dopamine. It's like
or
the
less
pleasure.
than fully.
It's the pleasure center, right? It's
Right.
like those little dings that say you have a new message, you have a new email, like somebody wants to connect with you on Facebook, whatever. it's more addictive than sugar. So it's hard. But learning about EMFs has actually helped me be better disciplined about my phone, because I can say, this is not good for me. This shouldn't be touching my body if it's not in airplane mode. This is something that I need to be more careful with. And for me, knowledge is usually the driving reason why I make a change. So if before I understood the dangers of it, before I researched it, I just kind of said, all right, I don't know if it's hurting me, but I'm sticking my head in the sand for a while longer, and I can't do that anymore. So now I have, I'm more careful around it. And for me, knowledge is power. And that comes down
Right.
to, like, I do try to educate my clients with a newsletter. Like, here's all the things you can think about. I can't teach you all this in an hour, but you can get these newsletters for years. And if you read them, then you'll be more well-rounded about health in general. And that can only help you.
That's so well said. And the simplicity of that communication is just a godsend. I think that what I see, that we're all addicted to dopamine, and dopamine is terrible for mental self-esteem, because it always seems like you're playing catch up and trying to prove something to yourself. Like you're coming to the moment from a space of weakness. And when we add that to stress, shallow breathing, poor diet, we can't sleep at night, autonomic dysfunction, we've got a little road to go down, all of us. And we kind of have to go down it alone. Like, in other words, we can help each other, but at the end of the day, it's about the information and choices that you have in the feedback loops of your brain, your beautiful brain. Your brain needs to be your friend. What are some things that folks can do to pause, fall in love with themselves again, and then be accountable and responsible to that knowledge that you're sharing with them today?
Wow. That's a deep question.
Yeah, well, we're deep people here. We are all really, really, there's that surface mind, which gets us through the day. But what really turns us on is a relationship with that deeper mind, like what you've cultivated in your life through caring for people, nutrition. Nobody wants to talk about nutrition anymore because they have to go on a diet, and they think the root word of diet is die. The only thing that's going to die is your ego, and it hasn't been alive for one day, even though it seems like it's alive. This accountability and responsibility, this richness that we're all in this together in humanity. Okay. No one gets left behind if you don't want to be left behind. It's an amazing tribe that we have. What can we do individually and collectively to help make ourselves, our house, our community a little healthier?
If I've learned anything the last 2 years, it's how to appreciate my friends and my relationships.
Mm,
I didn't
mm,
I didn't realize that I spent my entire life avoiding getting too deep, but
mm,
I went through a rough patch a year and a half ago, and I cried in front of a friend of mine, and she said, "I've known you for 7 years, and you've been emotional 3 times, and one of
mm,
them was your tooth hurt, and one of them was your dog something." I had no idea that I was holding so much inside, and then I finally I started dealing with it, and it was freeing. And I have better friends now because I've let them care for me.
mhm,
And that shows them that they're needed,
mhm.
because everyone wants to be needed, everyone wants to be loved, but if all you do is give and you never learn how to take, you're missing half.
Half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think about endurance sports, and time alone, time with myself, time in the cockpit, the conversations that I have with myself, they're about the realest conversations I've ever had. For someone like yourself who's excelled at a high level and pushed through the progressions of the body and resistance in the mind, well, first of all, how do you relax into that resistance?
Maybe that's why I've been an extreme athlete, because I think I never found a limit in my own life. So I just said, I'll just keep going longer until I fail. And I never quit a race. I never
Wow.
found a limit to that.
Wow.
And I think there's some rationale behind extreme athletes having some sort of trauma or
Oh, yeah.
abuse in the past. I
Yeah, you
think
need fuel.
you need fuel. I think it's sort of like saying, hey, you couldn't see me back when whatever happened. Look at me now. Like, so it's not just look at me, but like look at what I can do, and no one's going to stop me. So
Right.
there's a piece of that, and I've actually sort of dealt with some of that, and now I probably am not going to do the length of races that I used to do, maybe because I don't need to anymore.
Well said. Progression, evolving. You've spent your time in the fire. You've been on the coals for a long time. Thousands of hours of questions about yourself, your mettle. Can I get just one more step? Like when things start to slow down to that level where you're down to the last step and I can't find one more breath, something begins to occur inside the hierarchies of our humanness. What is it like? I mean, obviously, it's extremely painful. Let's not deny. I mean, you are in a war against the part of yourself that wants to stop. Can it even be explained how we keep going?
I no, I my first 100 miler,
100 miler.
100 miler, it was in Wales of all places.
Beautiful.
And I found myself at mile 75. In my head, I said, oh, I've already done 3 marathons. And then the hammer dropped, but I have another marathon to go. And
Wow.
I found myself just sitting on a hillside crying. Some guy came by and he's like, it's going to be all right. Let's walk to the next aid station. And we did. And we sat there and hung out, and I just kept walking. And it was, I, I don't know. But I never had in my mind that I was going to quit. It was just, I couldn't find a way forward, but I wasn't going to stop.
Backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right. I just think there's so many nuggets there that we all need to look at. In other words, you don't need to go out and run 100 miler to get to know yourself better. You might need just to walk around the block. But the idea is to set in motion something. You must have some sort of a plan. You must have some sort of a strategy. You must have great coaching. And then just let God move through you.
yeah. And sometimes just having a list of maybe where you think you're going, I try to explain it as if you have a to-do list that has 10 things on it and you do the first thing and it takes you 5 minutes, your brain thinks you're 90% of the way there. So,
Yes.
but if you choose the hardest thing first and it takes you a week, then your brain thinks, oh, that took a week, not 5 minutes. And maybe you never get to the rest because you're demoralized. So, I tell people, look for the quick wins, look for the progress, small victories on the way to the big goal. So especially with health, you know, write down what you're doing. Is my knee feeling just a little bit better today? Did I not get a headache? Did I get, is my gut just a little bit better with the digestion, less bloating? Or, just look for small wins. And then you go, oh, all right, I just got one thing done. Like, I can do this. I can continue to lose weight. I can continue to avoid eating that food that you really want, or whatever it is for yourself. You look for small wins and use that as a platform to keep going.
So we're looking for incremental success, which creates good habits, a good perception of ourselves as we project a good person to our social engagement relationships that we have. Now, peptides. What in the world? Why don't we all know about peptides in America?
They certainly know about them in Russia, where they were researched way more than we do. Yeah. So when I had IBS for a lot of years, could never figure it out, and that's probably one of the main factors that I got into nutrition. And so I got to go back to the poop thing. Sorry.
Dude, we're all about that here. Everything's fair game.
I've messed around with a lot of diets over the years. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I said to my husband, let's try the egg diet. Okay. You can feel better, lose weight. Eggs are amazing. So we just started eating a lot of eggs, and I got diarrhea for like 30 days, and I didn't connect the dots. I should have, but I didn't. So I couldn't figure out what it was. And I discovered oral BPC 157, which is the main peptide. It's made in your stomach, but it's very good at healing things. And so the first capsule I took of BPC 157 fixed my egg allergy, or sensitivity, I should say, and it started fixing my IBS. And so the IBS, obviously that can take some time. And it took, 6 months to a year. It started to be less and less and less. And now I haven't had a recurrence for years now. And so that was the factor that I said, okay, there's something to peptides. I'm going to research them more. And then it took me a few more years before I was bold enough to be able to inject myself, because there's a few oral peptides that work well because they do what they do in the gut and they're meant to be taken orally. But for the most part, they work better when they're systemic. So to go back to the basics, peptides are just little sections of proteins. And so they're just strings of amino acids. They're part of our DNA. Our body recognizes them as something it produces. But if we do them synthetically and inject them at like a lot larger dose, then they have an effect on the body. And this can be weight loss. I mean, they've become more well-known in the last few years because of weight loss peptides, but you can also get them for longevity and healing and tanning and anti-aging, all sorts of things. So it took me a couple of years to learn how to inject myself. I finally said, stop being a pansy. You got to be able to do this. And now, I've probably poked myself 1,000 times because I want to know what it's going to do to me. I make my husband try them. What is this doing? And what I've found is that there's really no side effects to peptides because they're made in your own body. They do what they're going to do. They have a short half-life, and they just make an effect, but you don't have to worry about the side effects. Now, the caveat is the weight loss peptides aren't quite the same thing. They have a longer half-life. They do have some effects that are meant to be the effects. And, if you're taking them for weight loss, that's a whole different thing. I still love them, but you have to be a little more careful.
What does half-life mean, Dawn?
It goes back to like the carbon content, I think. Don't
Mhm.
quote me on that, but a half-life means in, like, let's take coffee, for
Okay.
example. So coffee has a half-life of 6 hours. So if you
Mhm.
drink a cup of coffee at 9 a.m., at 3 p.m., it's still going to be half in your body. And then 6 hours later,
Thank
half
you.
of the half will still be around. So, I have this conversation about caffeine with people because they say, "Oh, I can't sleep." Well, when did you have your last cup of coffee? At 5:30? Well, most of that caffeine is still in your system, and that's definitely a contributing factor.
That's a great explanation. Thank you for that. So, human life is about movement, and movement creates flow, creates circulation. These bodies are designed to move, and when they don't move as efficiently, we lose our symmetry that we had as a young child through our joints, and a whole host of other physical problems begin to occur, which then eventually makes its way up into the brain, and the brain begins to age, and it's a slide from there. Let's talk a little bit about BPC 157 and TB 500 and its ability to heal our joints. So, for athletes out there or folks who might have joint issues, what can that particular peptide blend bring to them, and how long does it usually take before it works?
Yeah, so those two together, between the two of them, they act on bones, muscles, ligaments, tendons, pretty much every facet of the body. And when you inject something systemically in a subcutaneous injection, it works on the whole body. So people ask me, well, where should I inject it? Really, the easiest place for you to access, right? And so if you put it in your arm, it's still going to heal your big toe. It's going to go everywhere. And those two, they just they just I I I recommend them to clients who just broke their arm, who
Right.
sprained their ankle, who have like chronic issues. TB 500 is particularly good for nerves, and nerve pain can take a lot longer to heal. So, I tell them, like, you're in for the long haul. You need to do this for a while. But for an average person, like my mom just broke her ankle and I sent her peptides right away.
Right.
And she used them and she just got a clean bill of health. And it wasn't as long as it should have been. And, I had a friend break her arm and I said, you got to start these right away. And she thought she would need a permanent cast on her arm and never ended up getting more than just a soft cast. Because when she went back to get the permanent one, oh, you're actually doing better than we thought. You should be fine with this.
My personal experience with BPC 157 and TB 500, it's really hard to explain to folks because it's hard to comprehend. But I've had the MRIs, I've had the X-rays. It's all knee replacement, deterioration, pain, can't walk. In 48 hours, I was walking pain free. In a week, I was jogging and running. Now, that is my mind, the Western medicine mind that I've cultivated over the years, and even alternative medicine. Like my mind is the last to know that the all clear has been sounded in my right knee. And there's patterns of movement that are coming back online that were compensatory for the last year and a half, which are now dissipating. My mind and brain are coming back into balance again in a window of time that is undescribable to anyone until you experience it.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people find. The important thing to keep in mind is that the pain might go away just slightly ahead of the healing. So it's important to keep doing it. It's important to not overdo the new joint or injury that feels
Right.
better because it might not hurt, but healing takes a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
Well,
that's
look, pain. If you can remove pain from people's life, we'll worry about performance later. But let's just get back to walking pain free. Let's get back to getting up out of a chair, up and down, pain free. Every person who I've recommended you to and have recommended peptides to over the last 2 months have all gotten back to me like, oh my God, like what happened?
That's awesome. Yeah. And I will clarify, I don't sell peptides. I just recommend someone who does, but I can talk about dosage and how to do it. And I have videos on my website that help you understand them better. So like that's the piece where the FDA won't let me do both at once. And so it's, operating under the rules that our government has put in place. But I'm so happy that I can put out information about peptides because they're they just they're capable of doing so much for us that I want more people to know the word.
That's beautiful. I'm a firm believer that life is three things: it's energy, it's information, and it's awareness. And how do you interact with those as you move through your day and the things that you want to do? And to see people, hardcore athletes who have resigned themselves to serious surgery and then not do it and do this, and then see see the smile on their face, it is one of the most beautiful things.
That's awesome. Yeah, and the same thing about avoiding surgery. I help people avoid gallbladder surgery
Yeah.
because oftentimes it's just a matter of cleansing yourself of the stones that are blocking your gallbladder, and it's an organ you kind of need. And if you can hold on to it, that's great because it helps you digest fats and everything the body was put there for a purpose. And so if we can take care of ourselves and avoid unnecessary surgeries when possible, that's amazing.
Yeah, we're kind of a sealed unit. It doesn't like to be opened up. I mean, it'll do it. Those knives are sharp, but at the end of the day, if we can, like, you provide a beautiful cleanse for the liver and the gallbladder. Can you explain a little bit about that and how that works?
Yeah. So we talked earlier about gallstones and liver stones and how they can impact, geez, all sorts of facets of digestion and health. And so we can use a cleanse to get those stones out. And honestly, it might take more than one cleanse, but there's three parts of the process. And definitely, I have directions on my website. You shouldn't just wing this, but you drink some sort of apple juice or tart cherry juice for a few days before the cleanse, and that's malic acid, and the malic acid helps soften stones. So we refer to them as stones, but they're actually just calcified fat globules, right? So if you squish them, they'll squish, but we want to get them out before they become calcified and before they, and liver and gallbladder stones actually lead to kidney stones. And if anyone's ever had a kidney stone, you know how uncomfortable that is. So,
Mm-hmm.
so apple juice or tart cherry juice for a few days before the cleanse. And then the day of the cleanse, you want your digestive system to be really cleaned out. You just want an easy way for your stones to come out. So then the process is Epsom salts, which open your bile ducts. They taste horrible, but at this point, like I don't even care what stuff tastes like. If it's going to help me, I'll do it. So plug your nose, drink a bunch, drink it, and go on. So Epsom salts open the bile ducts, and then citrus and olive oil push bile through your system. So, and that's it's sort of like, open the tube, let the stones roll through, and you actually will see them, and they come out in your poop. But by then, your poop is mostly water because you've been, a little bit of fasting and lots of water, and they float. So, you can look in the toilet and say, oh, look, I have green stones. That's from my liver. Oh, I have some tan stones. That's probably gallbladder.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's more than you think might come out. And you go, whoa, like those were really blocking things. And often people have less back pain right away, or they just have better energy. Their bile's flowing again, maybe for the first time in a long time.
Yes, that's just such great advice. And, I look at society and, folks just look so depleted, so exhausted. Doesn't a lot of our energy, like our ATP, come from that liver gallbladder connection, our level of energy?
ATP, I mean, ATP is your wheelhouse. That's if oxygen.
Right.
And so what messes with oxygen?
Hmm.
Um, EMFs. We'll come back
Hmm.
to that, but definitely like oxygen is the root of health. And so if we can get enough of that, then our ATP production is going to be better. But it's some, it's hard to explain. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm not quite there yet.
Well, it's interesting too because you just graduated from an amazing integrative nutrition school. Can you explain a little bit about how that all came about?
Yeah, so I've taken nutrition classes over the years. I tried some high, PhD level stuff, but those classes wanted me to work within the confines of published studies. And I,
Mhm.
I love research studies,
Me too.
but there's in the realm of what I do, there aren't very many studies. Who's going to pay to check whether boron makes your knee pain feel better and helps with arthritis? There's no money in it. There's no money in things like peptides. So I couldn't talk about the things that were interesting to me that I knew were helping people because I couldn't find a research study that would say so. Anyway, so I went with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition because it seemed like they had the whole picture. And it
Mhm.
just happened to be at a time in my life when I needed to see a bigger picture. A couple of years ago, I probably would have been a lot more one sided and said, this supplement will fix everything. And
Mhm.
obviously, it can never be true. And so, if you think of life as a pie, uh, or even health as a pie, like there's a lot of slices in there.
Mhm.
They all matter. Sleep and friendship and finances and
Mhm.
what you eat and what you don't eat and what you take as a supplement. And like, there's so many slices to the pie. And I just had one, and now I have a lot more. And
Yeah.
it helps me just find the patterns and see, oh, you have this and this, then this might be an issue. And it's just been it was so good, and they had great lectures, and it was the right time in my life for me to hear what they were saying.
I'm so happy you took that training because you are a force for good, Dawn. As we wrap this up, I think everybody is concerned about brain health. We're teaching longevity, we're teaching vitality, and there's always that fear like someday, I might have one of the senior issues and I might require care from someone outside of my family, or I need to leave my house because I can't take care of myself. Can you explain or give us some tips about brain health, peptides for the brain to stall aging in the brain, release neural inflammation that causes a lot of these problems in the brain? Is there peptides for the brain?
There are peptides for the brain. Cerebralizin is a really interesting one. You can take it as a small dose, just do your own. Um, but you can also take it as an IV. And I don't have experience with that, but they are using it very effectively. And it's been legal for dementia in not the US, but many other countries for 70 years. It's been in use for a long time and has great results. But honestly, the longer I go doing this business, the more I'm finding that just getting back to the basics, elements on the periodic table really help with even brain health. So
Mhm.
for me and the Oligoscan, I'm seeing a lot of patterns with low iodine. And personally, when I started taking iodine several years ago, within a week, my brain turned back on. I could think clearly. I was getting a lot done. My sleep patterns changed for the better. And I haven't looked back since. I've had
Wow,
years
powerful.
where I'm like, my brain is firing on all cylinders. And so peptides are great. I use them as an adjunct to help people bridge the gap and then say, okay, let's look for what you're short of. Let's look for what your brain's needing, and it needs iodine.
Hmm. Interesting.
Or other things, but it's it's just using all the tools in my toolbox to help people see, like, oh, look, I made that first step, my brain feels better, or I'm sleeping better, or something like that, and then they start to see hope. But it's an unhealthy world, right? EMFs, if you're holding your phone to your head for hours a day, you're radiating your brain like that.
Flying your brain.
Yeah, it affects your pituitary gland, right? And so or your pineal gland, I'm sorry. So you can calcify parts of your brain that really need to think. So my job is to uncalcify them, right?
Hmm. I know that you provide an amazing service for athletes, preparation, training strategies, nutrition, day of the race stuff, and recovery stuff. What is your program like for athletes who might be out there trying to achieve their goal this year?
Yeah, so part of it is just, let's talk first about their nutrition, their lifestyle, their habits. Let's do their Ligascan and make sure that there's not something obvious that they're missing. But then it's looking at, I have my own program because I race a lot. So the
Yeah.
week before a race, I'm doing like a certain amount of supplements
Hmm.
that I don't normally do, but I take more oral BPC 157. I'm like, okay, let's really like make my gut solid so that when I race, I don't have to worry about getting sick. Now, I do have to caveat, if you're a WADA athlete, you cannot take peptides. So,
Hmm.
be legal, be safe, don't do them. But if you're just an average Joe Schmo, age grouper, yeah, then you're not under WADA, which is nice. But yeah, so I have some strategies for racing, but a lot of it just comes back to, like, let's be really clear about what my goals are, what I need to eat. I'm pretty scientific about,
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat that the night before. I don't want to risk not feeling my best. And so I'm going to just do all the right things, make all the right choices, and then, show up to race day ready.
So when I was a kid, I was supposed to eat all the pasta I could before I went out for a marathon run the next day. Who came up with that idea?
Yeah, we've kind of bastardized that. I mean, the original study was, don't eat carbs for a few days leading up to that pasta feed, which I don't know that it actually was ever a huge pasta feed. But if you deplete yourself of carbs for a while, and then when you do eat them, you'll absorb them quickly. But pasta sits in your gut. If I ate that the night before a race, I think I would puke.
Yeah, and your resume is certainly world class, and it's just I'm in awe of you as a person, personally and professionally. You just meet people in your life, and some just stick with you a little more than others, and you're one of those, Dawn. When when folks want to reach you, I know you just opened up a new office.
I do, yeah. It's in Sandy, Utah, just off 106th. And it's inside of a running gym called
Yeah,
21 Run. And
beautiful.
so it's a good synergy, right? Because I can help the athletes there accomplish their goals. Our one of the owners of the gym is a Olympic marathon trials qualifier. So she's got a lot of experience with how to be fast and how to do it right. And then I can come in with my piece of how to eat better, how to like look at all your nutrients and make sure all those are optimized too.
So not only can folks go to Run 21 to get professional training, but they can also get professional nutrition advice and other types of advice to help them meet their goals.
Yeah, I mean, you can work out 6 times a week, but if you're missing a key nutrient, your body is not going to be able to recover right, or it's just not going to feel good, or you're not going to get the most out of your workout. So I think together they're pretty important.
It's like Dr. Mark Hyman said, you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet.
No, if ultra running made you thin, I would be a skeleton.
So listen, Dawn, congratulations on a life lived.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to have a bunch of links down here where folks can reach you and your amazing service in Sandy, Utah. You can work with folks online throughout the country, right?
I do, yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's wrap this up. I love you. You're doing great work, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.